This April 23rd, 2025 meeting of the Senate Finance Committee will come to order. We have two bills on the agenda, the Elections Budget Omnibus Bill and the State and Local Government Omnibus Bill. And we are going to start with Senate File 3096, Senator Westlin, the Elections Budget Omnibus Bill. Welcome to the Senate Finance Committee.
Thank you, Senator Chair Marty and members. Good morning. Good to see you. First, I would like to thank Senator Carlson, who is the chair of the Elections Committee, for the opportunity this year to carry the Elections Omnibus Bill. Overall, the Omnibus Bill includes a wide variety of important reforms and new protections, as well as a number of bipartisan provisions to make our elections stronger. And I do look forward to walking through and discussing the fiscal impacts of this bill. We have a massive budget, so the fiscal part of the budget bill for the elections is actually quite small, and I think I'll have Mr. Erickson do a quick walkthrough.
Mr. Erickson, welcome to the committee, and please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair and members. As usual, when you see me in front of this committee, I have multiple spreadsheets, the first one being a detailed spreadsheet that is used to populate the bill, but often has more detail than is useful for this committee. So I just want to flag that spreadsheet for the committee, but I'll actually be walking through the one that is labeled Change Items, Senate Elections Finance 2025. You'll see on the left-hand side the two agencies that are in the elections jurisdiction, the Secretary of State and the Campaign Finance Board. And then across the top, you will see changes for fiscal 25. Then between the bold lines, the current budget biennium, and then finally the tails biennium. So the changes that are in the bill before the committee are $260,000 one time for the Secretary of State to conduct some voter outreach efforts, $200,000 one time for a HAVA federal funds match. There is a $79,000 operating adjustment for the Campaign Finance Board. There is, you'll notice on line 12, recognizing a double counting of some funds that in the fund balance that came out in the forecast were accidentally counted twice. So this is just recognizing that amount. And then $500,000 in one-time money to the Campaign Finance Board for litigation expenses. Moving down to line 20, you'll see that we're in the revenues and transfers section of the spreadsheet, and you will see on line 22 money in fiscal 28 of $15.252 million. This is part of a change item to bill parties for the costs of the presidential nomination primary. These are paid from an open appropriation, and the way this is mechanically recognized in the bill is by billing those parties and depositing the money in the general fund as a non-dedicated receipt. And then on line 31 and 33, you'll see that there's a one-time transfer of any money that's remaining in the voting equipment grant account into the voting operations technology and elections resources account. And then, Mr. Chair, that takes us to the end of the spreadsheet, and the bill is in target and complies with the budget rules.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. Are there questions from the committee on the spreadsheet first? Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Erickson, could you talk about that transfer just a little bit more, and does that conform with our standard budget rules?
Mr. Chair and Senator Pratt, yes, I believe it does. Let me pull up the bill language. Yes, if you're looking at the bill, you'll see on lines 3.6 to 3.10 the transfer saying that the Secretary of State needs to transfer the balance in that account. And it's not in the appropriation section, which is where the hitch has been, I think.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. And Mr. Erickson, had we not used this, would this have fallen back to the general fund?
Mr. Chair and Senator Pratt, no, it would not have. It's in a special revenue account, and it would have just sat there.
Further questions on the spreadsheet? Further questions on the bill? Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It sounds like this is the appropriate time to do amendments. I'd like to offer the A9 amendment.
Senator Pratt offers the A9 amendment. I believe that it is in the packets. It is in the packets and has been passed out. Senator Pratt on the A9 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, there's a new allocation of money to the Secretary of State for improving voter turnout. And what this simply does, and I've had a chance to preview it with Senator Westlin, is to make sure that we get some reporting back from the Secretary of State as far as how those monies were spent, where they were spent, and any impact, for us to look to see if those monies are being effective at driving additional voter turnout. And I hope Senator Westlin will take this as a friendly amendment.
Senator Westlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Pratt, for speaking to me about this yesterday. We've had conversations about it. There was a minor tweak that you were willing to accept, and I view this as a friendly amendment, and I thank you for bringing it.
Is there further discussion on the A9 amendment? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. Further amendments, further discussion? If not, Senator Friends moves. Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There was one piece that I wanted to talk about just briefly, and that was on the spreadsheet line 22. While I understand the rationale behind billing the major parties for primaries, I am concerned at the precedent that it sets. We set the presidential primary as a matter of state law. And whether we have one party or four parties that are participating in the primaries, the expense is the same. I'm not sure why we're trying to do such a $15 million change, $16 million change on that when, and my fear is that as we've seen third parties kind of rise up for a short period of time and try to get their footing, this is yet one more opportunity for us to stifle, I think, the political voice of many people who don't necessarily find that they are fully encamped with the Republicans or fully encamped with the Democrats. And if we're going to set a statewide primary and we're going to set that date for the presidential election, then I think it's incumbent that we run that like any other election. It's not a party function. It's an election function that's done at our local precincts, just like it would be for a school board election, just like it would be for our elections. So I just wanted to say I am concerned with that piece and the impact that it will have in potentially stifling third-party voices down the line. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Westlin on that issue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I appreciate the commentary. The presidential nominating primary is basically it's a straw poll, and it is conducted at the request of the parties. Unfortunately, what happened was the initial estimates for the primary were somewhere around $3 million, and that is 5 times that much now. It's running closer to $15 million. And in a year where we're having to make cuts in healthcare and in education and so on, unfortunately, this was an area where we simply this was really the only place where we could find some money and make some cuts this year. I think that this is basically a straw poll. It's an internal matter for the parties in determining who their nominees would be. And so, unfortunately, I think this is something that's going to have to fall back on the parties at this point.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Westlin. And you'll find no argument with me in figuring out that fiscal notes have not been exactly accurate and have most likely underestimated costs when the governor and the agencies want those provisions to go forward. Lost my track of thought here, Mr. Chair, but I think we are putting, and I agree we need to make the budget cuts. The problem is in all of the budgets that we've seen, we are increasing the amount of money we're spending in state agencies, and we are decreasing the amount that really affect average Minnesotans. Instead of asking state government to share in the pain of the cuts, we're pushing them off to our counties, our school districts, and in this case, our political parties that will end up, I think, as I mentioned before, stifling third-party voices. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Dames.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Westlin. Can the parties opt out of this now that's going to be charged to the parties? Can they opt out? If a party decides they don't want to be part of it, can they opt out?
Chair Marty, Senator Dames, absolutely. I mean, if they don't pay to participate. So what is the mechanics of this is, as I understand it, is late in the fall prior to the presidential nominating primary, the Secretary of State would prepare an invoice of the expected cost. It would be sent to the parties. The parties don't want to pay the cost. They don't have to participate in the primary. And again, just to put a fine point on this, that the parties came to the state and asked the Secretary of State to administer basically a straw poll for the parties. And it just seems fair, especially in times when we don't have money coming out of our ears, that they either pay the cost themselves or they can opt out of it.
Thank you.
Further discussion on the bill. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Senator Westlin. Again, I just want to echo Senator Pratt's and Senator Dames' concern on the break we had last week. I met with my counties, and my counties are getting shifted a lot of money, a lot of costs down to counties, and now we're shifting these costs down to parties. A lot of shifts and gimmicks going on this year. Blew an $18 billion surplus in 2023, and now we're trying to shift onto the local taxpayers. And again, the money, this one specifically doesn't, but the rest of them are all getting shifted onto property taxes, and that's costing our citizens a lot more money. So these shifts are getting frustrating. Thank you.
Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Chair Marty, and thank you, Senator Westlin, for bringing the bill forward. I know the budgets aren't the easiest to do. I guess my line of questioning kind of goes along the lines of the what if one party decides not to participate and the other one does? What happens to the remainder? Is the whole $15 million charged to the one party that participates, or does the Secretary of State or whatever bucket of money, the general fund, I guess, what is this coming out of? General fund. So then the general fund would just take a $7.5 million hit. How does that work if one party says, no, we're not going to participate?
Yep. So, so the party is billed for their share of the primary, and they would pay for it. They would pay for their share.
So, yes, so their share. So what if one party decides they don't want to participate? So then the whole $15 million would be up to the one party that is participating?
So, Mr. Chair and Senator, thank you for the question. So, the Office of the Secretary of State would pay the full cost, and they invoice the party that is participating for their part of the cost. And the rest of it would be absorbed by the Secretary of State's office.
Senator Draheim.
So just make sure I have this clear. So the estimated cost is the $15,252,000. And if one party decides not to participate, so there's only, let's say, the Blue Dogs participating, and the Blue Dogs would then get invoiced for the whole $15,252,000. Is that correct?
Mr. Erickson? Or?
Yeah, I apologize. Mr. Erickson understands this better than I do.
Mr. Chair, Senator Westlin, Senator Draheim, yeah, so the mechanics in the bill, or the way it currently works, is that the Secretary of State certifies an amount that they believe that the primary will cost. And they can make supplemental certifications so that the full costs are done. What the bill does is take that initial certification amount and bills that in equal parts to any major parties that are eligible. So even if the costs end up exceeding that original certification, that's paid through an open appropriation. So that all comes from the general fund. The only amount that the parties are on the hook for is that original certification divided equally. Then, as I described with the spreadsheet, the spend is what the spend is. That's paid for by the open appropriation. The offset is that revenue. So if a party does not pay its costs, we would recognize a smaller revenue than expected on the spreadsheet. So the full amounts will still be paid, the primary will go on, but there will be less revenue than expected to the general fund as a non-dedicated receipt. So that's where it comes. It doesn't accrue specifically to the Secretary of State or any other agency. It's to the general fund. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, so my understanding then, it just disappears, the other half then, and the general fund will eat up the difference.
Mr. Chair and Senator Draheim, yeah, that's more or less correct. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Senator Dames and then Senator Friends? Go ahead, Senator Dames.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Westlin. Can you tell me, are there any other shifts that are being shifted to lower levels of government, such as counties or cities in this bill?
I don't think so. Mr. Chair and Senator Dames, no. And just to be clear, this isn't being shifted to local governments. This is at least the conversation we're having about the cost of the presidential nominating. Primary is not something that's being shifted to local governments. It's specifically being shifted to the two major parties.
Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was wondering if Mr. Erickson could go a little deeper into the line item 12, recognizing the double counting of a one-time transfer.
Mr. Chair and Senator Pratt, yes, I apologize, I don't have the fund balance from February in front of me, but essentially what happens is there's a statutory transfer every 2 years into the general account of the state elections campaign account, the public subsidy. And the amount in rolling up numbers from November forecast into the February forecast, those numbers were rolled up into the general operations line for the campaign finance board, but that line wasn't stricken below. So essentially that full amount appeared in the fund balance twice, was never corrected. So there's nothing in the bill that effectuates that change. We're just recognizing whoops.
Further discussion on the bill. Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if anybody else is going to jump in, but I just wanted to say, you know, when I first got to the Minnesota Senate, we had a long tradition of having elections bills be bipartisan. I remember Governor Dayton at one time threatening to veto a bill when the DFL had a trifecta if it didn't have bipartisan support. That tradition was broken last biennium, and we ended up passing some of the most partisan elections bills in state history. And I think it's interesting. One of the line items that we are trying to skip over is litigation expenses. That we passed a bill that was unconstitutional, illegal, and now we have to pay the litigation expenses of those who challenged it because we didn't work in a bipartisan fashion, because we didn't work with all the stakeholders, that we were trying to push through our elections bill a very partisan point of view. And it's just, I think, something that we should bring back as a tradition in the Minnesota Senate, is to make sure that we are listening to stakeholders and we are listening to both sides of the aisles, both the voices of the minority and the majority. You know, as we look at this, you know, as we look at this expense for the primaries, the concern that we're silencing the voices of those who might be our political opponents is very disturbing. As we passed laws that were unconstitutional is very disturbing. And the fact that we passed laws last biennium and now with some very concerning provisions in this bill, we are continuing down that same path. And Mr. Chair and Senator Westlin, I'll be talking to my colleagues in our caucus, but I'm hoping that we can get to a point where we can get back to the tradition of having bipartisan election bills.
Mr. Chair.
Senator
Mr. Chair and Senator, I appreciate your comments. This bill actually is bipartisan. In fact, I just took an amendment that you brought to me that I appreciated. This has provisions from Senator Cran. It has a provision from Senator Draheim. In fact, I have a provision that kind of dovetails with Senator Draheim's. I think we have worked very hard to try to give hearings to bills from both the Democrats and the Republicans, and I will say that often the DFL bills had bipartisan authorship. So while that is always a goal, I think that bipartisanship by definition means people working together. And my experience at times has been that, we try to put something together that's bipartisan, and in spite of that, get no votes from my friends on the other side of the aisle. So bipartisanship, by definition, requires people to work together collaboratively. I also believe, Senator Pratt and members, we have fundamental differences as parties. We have some fundamental differences in how we approach things, and there are some things that we probably are never going to see eye to eye on. But I am committed, have been committed, continue to be committed to try to find those places where we can find those common ground values and work to create provisions that people can live with, understanding that there are always going to be some things that perhaps we just aren't, we're going to have to agree to disagree, but hopefully we disagree agreeably.
Thank you. Senator Dames? Oh, Senator Dames, no. Did you have something else? No. Senator Friends?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Pratt. What I hear is we should not be doing things that attack our political enemies. I join you in looking for that, but I think it's on all of us to call out members of our own party when they engage at that, whether that is at the state or federal level. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the bill? If not, Senator Friends, can you move to lay Senate File 3096 as amended on the table? I believe this is going to be merged with another bill. Senator Friends, okay with that motion? If so, on the motion to lay Senate Files 3096 as amended on the table, I see a number of people are online, so we better, if we're doing a roll call, people have to turn on their cameras. There being no further discussion on the motion to lay Senate File 3096 as amended on the table, the staff will take the roll.
Senator Marty?
Aye.
Senator Friends?
Yes.
Senator Pratt?
Yes.
Senator Champion? Senator Dames?
No.
Senator Draheim?
Yes.
Senator Howe? Senator Jasinski?
No.
Senator Mohammed?
Yes.
Senator Murphy?
Yes.
Senator Pappas?
Yes.
Senator Wickland? Senator Howe? And Senator Champion.
Senator Champion seems to be online. Senator Champion.
I said aye.
Okay.
Thank you, Senator
Can
Champion.
you hear me?
Now we hear you. Thank you. We got it now. There being 9 ayes and 2 nays, the motion to lay Senate File 3096 as amended on the table prevails. And thank you, Senator Westlin, for the bill presentation. I'm going to ask for a 10-minute brief recess before we take up Senator Xiong's bill. And so with that, this committee is adjourned to the call of the chair in about 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Meeting of the Senate Finance Committee will come back to order. We have one bill remaining today. Senator Xiong, Senate File 3045, the State and Local Government Budget Omnibus Bill. Welcome to the committee. Go ahead. No, just please begin with the bill presentation, and we can have Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. Have before you Senate File 3045. This bill funds vital state agencies that Minnesotans rely on and that make Minnesota a great place for businesses and a great place to raise a family. The bill focuses on maintaining stability across state operations, modernizing our core systems, and strengthening public oversight. It's practical, it's responsive, and reflects the priorities of the institutions Minnesotans rely on every day. We support the legislature, governor's office, agencies, boards, councils, and constitutional offices with operating adjustments to help cover inflation and staffing pressures so they can continue doing good work for Minnesota. We invest in the Attorney General's office with additional staff and overdue technology upgrades to support their work supporting our communities and our counties in complex criminal matters. Advocates for consumer rights and protections, defending small businesses, and more. We fund the Secretary of State to protect business filings and bolster our nation-leading election infrastructure. And we can include a package of policy provisions from strengthening the OLA to improving grant oversight. And yes, we are making the giant beaver Minnesota's official state fossil. While the federal government is cutting crucial services to some of our most vulnerable, this bill funds our AG's office to fight for one who fights those who take advantage of Minnesotans and infringe on their rights. This bill funds Minute, admin, MMB agencies and ensure that services can be delivered across the state. It funds numerous licensing boards that support workers across the state, and it supports agency work to protect public funds against bad actors seeking to commit fraud against the state. This bill makes some simple but impactful changes to local government laws that will help our cities and counties operate efficiently and without wasting their precious resources. And with that, I do have an amendment. I don't know if you would like me to go over that, or we can have staff do the spreadsheet.
Mr. Chair and members, as I just said on the last bill, there's a number of spreadsheets that are in front of you. The detailed spreadsheet, which would be very similar to the one we looked at in elections. This one also does have a cover page that is a general fund only summary, similar structure for columns and agencies, so I won't walk through those, but did want to call attention to them. Going to the spreadsheet labeled change items for Senate and state and local government finance, this spreadsheet is drawn to the first engrossment that is in your packets. And you'll see again the agencies along the left side, and then changes for the current fiscal year, fiscal 25, and then different sets of columns, change only columns for 26, 27, and then 28 and 29. For the legislature, this bill appropriates $4.6 million to the Senate, $7.3 million to the House, and $4.1 million to the LCC, for a total of $16 million to the legislature for operating adjustments. There is a $681,000 increase to the state auditor. This amount is offset near the end of the spreadsheet by billing revenues because of the way the billing structure for the state auditor works and a requirement to recoup the costs of certain expenses. For the Attorney General, there is a $1.976 million operating adjustment along with a $250,000 one-time appropriation for a server room upgrade, and a further $5.782 million operational and staff increase. I should just reflect briefly, the operating adjustments here reflect what the governor's numbers were in the recommendations, and the operational increases reflect anything above that. The Secretary of State has $578,000 over base in this bill, along with $1.3 million for a fraudulent business filing removal process that had been carried in Senator Klein's Senate File 1734. There's a $24,000 operating adjustment for the CAP Board, $30,000 from the General Fund for the Office of Administrative Hearings, along with $1.767 million from the Workers' Compensation Fund for the Office of Administrative Hearings. There's a $564,000 operating adjustment in the bill over base for Minnesota IT services. And then a number of changes as the bill has been referred to this committee for the Department of Administration, including a $911,000 operating adjustment, a $300,000 reduction in transfers that are made into a special revenue account for the Office of Enterprise Translation. There's a $2.875 million operating adjustment for in lieu of rent, which is the amount that is paid directly from the general fund to admin for spaces that don't otherwise have tenants paying rent for the expenses of those spaces. There's $250,000 for a grant to the Minnesota Orchestra, $220,000 for a grant to the History Theater, a reduction in $500,000 in unassigned public broadcasting grant money. This was money that was appropriated, or not appropriated, but set in the base in the fiscal, or in the 2023 session bill, but had been labeled as one time. So there's money that was floating along but not assigned to any purpose. Half of that has been assigned and half is being recognized as a savings. For Minnesota Management and Budget, there is a $2.7 million operating adjustment over base, along with $688,000 for some enhanced oversight. There's also a governor's change item that is picked up, a $1.7 million cancellation in the current year for unused funds relating to a data disaggregation project that was appropriated in the 2023 session. There is a $12.7 million operating adjustment for the Department of Revenue, an $875,000 operating adjustment for the racing, or excuse me, not an operating adjustment, but this is related to a fee increase at the bottom. This increases an advanced deposit wagering regulatory fee from 1% to 2%. Money from that increase goes into an account that has a statutory appropriation out. So this is the first half of that change item. The Amateur Sports Commission has a $28,000 operating adjustment. The Minnesotans of African Heritage Council has a $225,000 operating increase, along with the recommended $34,000 operating adjustment. The Latino Affairs Council has a $272,000 operating increase in addition to the recommended $36,000 operating adjustment. The Council for Asian Pacific Minnesotans has a $28,000 operating adjustment. The LGBTQIA2S Plus Council has a $24,000 operating adjustment and a $460,000 operating increase. There is a $61,000 operating adjustment for the Minnesota Indian Affairs Council, $925,000 in operating adjustment for the Historical Society, $30,000 operating adjustment for the Board of the Arts, $44,000 operating adjustment for the Board of Accountancy, $43,000 for the Board of Architecture and Engineering, et cetera, the $21,000 operating adjustment for the Barbers Examiners Board, and $169,000 operating adjustment for the Cosmetology Examiners Board. That will take us down to line 134, where the revenues and transfer sections begin, and you'll see on line 136 the billing revenue offset for the state auditor that I referenced earlier. There is also, in Article 6 of the bill, an increase on a number of business filing fees that the Secretary of State collects and deposits in the general fund as a non-dedicated receipt. That's a $732,000 annual revenue, so $1.464 million for the biennium. There is on line 147, the second half of the advanced deposit wagering regulatory fee increase that I mentioned. There's the non-general fund revenue there. On line 153, you'll also see, this is not built into the totals at the bottom, but there is a appropriation for the Capital Mall Design Framework implementation that was set to expire, and there's an extension of the availability of those funds in this bill. That doesn't carry a cost, but the budget rules do require us to show that amount on the spreadsheet. And then that takes us to the bottom of the spreadsheet, where you can see the bill is in balance with the committee's target and does comply with the budget rules.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. Are there questions from the committee on the spreadsheet? If not, Senator Xiong, you had some amendment or amendments?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Erickson. I have the 838 amendment. And hopefully members have copies of the amendment.
I believe it was passed out perhaps in a packet of several amendments. 838. it was passed out just recently with a paperclip on it, not in the packets originally. The A38 amendment. And Senator Xiong, while it's being handed out, do you want to explain the amendment?
Yep, thank you, Chair. So the A38 amendment, as you can see here from line 1.2, puts money into the Secretary of State's office. And lines 1.3 to 1.5, it deletes the grants there to shift that over to the Secretary of State's office in line 1.2. And from 1.6 to 1.17, it corrects technical error in Department of Revenue's appropriations. And I'd like to present that in front of the committee.
Discussion of the spreadsheet, of the A38, excuse me. And Senator Friends, are you willing to offer the A38? Is there a discussion of the amendment? Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm wondering, we got a note from the majority leader last night that there was a $1 million change to the target. I'm wondering if we could just maybe, since the spreadsheet we just walked through was dated 4/10, if we could get an updated walkthrough on where those changes are in the spreadsheet and then in the change document.
Yeah. Mr. Erickson, could you explain where the changes in the spreadsheet would be?
Yes, Mr. Chair and Senator Pratt, if we were to look through this spreadsheet, were the A38 to be adopted, you would see in a new line under the Secretary of State, so lines 21, 22, for an operating increase of, I believe it's 1.22 million. Have to do the subtraction in my head. And then the next several lines delete the grants at the Department of Administration, so you would see lines 53 and 54 of the spreadsheet drop to 0. And then the final changes for Department of Revenue don't require any changes on this spreadsheet. That's just reflecting a different error that was already in the detailed spreadsheet at the Department of Revenue. Essentially what's happening there is there's a statutory transfer of $100,000 each year. It's built into the base and shown as a direct appropriation, so they would be getting that money twice. So we're backing that money out, but otherwise the totals would be the same for change items.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator Xiong, can you explain why we're seeing a 1.22 increase in the Secretary of State's operating budget that didn't go through committee? Why is it coming at such a late time?
No, thank you, Chair and Senator Pratt. I would, in trying to put together the budget, I would have initially liked to fund as much as I can for the Secretary of State's office. For the portions that are in the fees that were discussed, that won't be able to be transferred into operations for running elections here and some of the other functions of the Secretary of State's office. And so my intent was to try to help the Secretary of State's office as best as I could. There were some placeholder grants that I had initially thought that if it wasn't going to make it through, that's where I was going to put it in, the Secretary of State's office.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Senator Xiong, it's just going, there's no specific purpose other than operating expense. While we're asking Minnesotans to take cuts, while we're asking property tax holders to take on more and more, we're going to go ahead and continue to fund state agencies at levels so that they don't share the burden and the pain of our budget deficit. That's kind of how I see this. I think state government ought to be sharing in the impact of a $3 billion structural deficit that we're facing now. And I would have hoped that there was, a little bit more coming at, in the last 12 hours than just we wanted to give the Secretary of State a little bit more, especially since we granted him money for some, for some additional projects that weren't funded in the past in the elections bill. So, Mr. Chair, I just continue to be concerned that we are asking the state government not to make any cuts, not to make any sacrifices as we go along, and we'll just push all of the expense when we see some of the later bills come through down to the cities, counties, and school districts. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on A38 amendment? Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to thank Senator Xiong for the work on this bill, and in particular in recognizing the valuable work that happens in the in the Secretary of State's office regarding elections. And Senator Pratt, I was happy yesterday when you acknowledged the work that we are doing in the Senate to approach this budget in a very responsible way, with our eye on not just balancing for 2 years, but looking out at the structural imbalance in the planning years. And if you have opportunity to have conversation with people who work in state government, I think that you would hear their concern about our approach on this budget and what it means for their livelihoods. So I think it would be missing the perspective of a number of people if we aren't clear that state government and state employees are facing a cut and cuts in the budget that we're proposing, because we are insisting on balancing into the tails. I think that is the case, for Minnesota. And I think it is important that we are doing the work of a stably balanced budget. That is important for Minnesotans. We heard before this bill, the elections bill. I think this committee, in their votes and in their words, talked about the importance of elections, and we know that elections are under a lot of pressure. There is political pressure and real pressure on elections and election officials, and the conduct of our elections is fundamental to our democracy. When I think we got the governor's proposal, we matched that, but understand that it was short, and we don't want to short the important funding of the Secretary of State's office when it comes to the conduct of our elections. It's just too important right now for Minnesotans, and so that is why we're making this adjustment at this time. And I just wanted to be clear about that with you. Thank you.
Senator Friends moves the A38 amendment. Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think to that point, Senator Murphy, I stand by the comments that I made yesterday. I agree with the what, I disagree with the how. And this is just again a symptom of the fact that, as Senator Jasinski said earlier, the entire budget is built on shifts and gimmicks and pushing things down to our local governments, and we added over 1,000 new state employee positions in the last 2 years. We're not talking about cutting any of those. We're not talking about freezing those that aren't hired. I understand this is a people business. I served on a school board where 80 to 85% of our budget was in salaries and benefits, because it is a people business. But I also think we have to run this in a very responsible way and making sure that we are just not putting the burden back down on Minnesota families. And that's what I see when I see the budget in total. Thank you.
Further discussion on the A38 amendment? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Motion prevails. Before we get to other amendments, because I know there are several others, we traditionally have commissioners from the agency, and here there are several here, speak to it. And we're going to start with MMB Deputy Commissioner Britta Raytan. Welcome to the Senate Finance Committee. Welcome to the committee, Ms. Commissioner Rayton.
Thank you so much, Senator Marty and committee members. My name is Britta Rayton. I am Deputy Commissioner at Minnesota Management and Budget. Thanks for the time this morning. First, I want to thank you for the opportunity to just comment on the Omnibus state government bill before you. We're grateful to Chair Xiong and the state and local government committee members for their work and for the attention to our agency in this bill. We especially appreciate the inclusion of our operating adjustment at the level included in the governor's recommendation to provide for rising costs due to increases in employer-paid healthcare contributions, FICA, Medicare, along with other salary and compensation-related costs. In addition to other operating costs such as rent and lease, fuel and utilities, IT, and legal services that also grow with inflation. We appreciate that the bill funds a portion of our enhanced oversight capacity request, which overlaps with the governor's package of anti-fraud proposals. Minnesotans expect robust oversight at their state government and the expenditure of public funds. MMB has identified several investments needed to meet the expectations of our various oversight activities, and we look forward to the opportunity to work on the potential inclusion of the entire package as we reach final agreement on this bill. We greatly appreciate the inclusion of several agency policy provisions, especially our proposal to allow greater flexibility in procuring prescription drug and pharmacy benefits for our CGIP members. These changes are important to generate more competition in the procurement process and to allow MMB to respond to an ever-evolving prescription drug benefit landscape. Finally, we hope for additional consideration of the governor's recommendation expanding agency operating budget carry-forward authority to allow agencies to carry forward unexpended, non-grant operating funds from the second year of the biennium into the next biennium. This would provide an important tool to help manage cost pressures and would align the executive branch authorities with that of the legislative branch. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and I look forward to working with you to enact a balanced budget.
Thank you, Commissioner. Questions for Commissioner Rayton? If not, thank you very much. Next, we have IT Services Commissioner Thoms. Welcome to the committee. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Marty and committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. For the record, my name is Tarek Thoms, and I serve as the Commissioner of Minnesota IT Services and as the Chief Information Officer for the state of Minnesota. I would like to begin by acknowledging the critical role the legislature has played in advancing digital services for Minnesotans. Through prior investments advancing cyber security defenses and collaboration, accelerating cloud transformation, and advancing application modernization, the legislature has been instrumental in supporting Minute and our state agency business partners and local forms of government in our mission to improve Minnesotans' experience interacting with their state government in a safe and responsible way. To the bill in front of the committee today, Minute is grateful for the inclusion of the governor's recommended operating adjustment in Senate File 3045. Supporting this modest adjustment enables Minute to continue existing levels of service while also allowing our agency to address increases in employer-paid health care contributions such as FICA and Medicare, as well as other compensation-related costs. While Minute's general fund is a small portion of our total IT spend as a state and as an organization, it is the core source of funding for our statewide leadership functions, enabling Minute to advance the whole of state cybersecurity plan and support local government and school districts in their cyber defenses, supporting MinGeo in enabling data-driven decision-making, and to allow us to continue to move forward recommendations from the Technology Advisory Council. Thank you for your continued support and the opportunity to testify. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Any questions from the committee? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Department of Administration Commissioner Grunbaugh. Welcome to the committee.
Good morning, Chair Marty, Vice Chair Frentz, Ranking Member Senator Pratt, and committee members. I'm Tamar Grunbaugh. I'm the Commissioner at the Department of Administration, and it's good to see so many of you again. Admin's primary role is to help government best serve Minnesotans. We are a central service agency with a wide-ranging set of responsibilities that ultimately touches every part of state government and provides services in every single Minnesota community. To reiterate my testimony from the State and Local Government Committee in front of Chair Xiong, I acknowledge the difficult decisions that the chair has to make in this budget, and I want to thank you for recognizing the need to fund the governor's budget recommendations for admin. First, the small increases to admin's operating budget and in lieu of rent will help admin to cover, first, growing expenses for healthcare, compensation, utilities, and IT, and also the operations and maintenance around the capital area for entities that do not pay for their lease spaces. Second, extending the Capital Mall Design Framework funding will allow for the completion of the first phase that is currently underway on the Capitol complex. Third, admin also appreciates the inclusion of most of our policy proposals, including admin's contracting, grants, and technical policy bills. These changes will help admin to best serve our partners and keep our statutes up to date. Fourth, the bill also establishes the state building renewable energy, storage, and electrical vehicle account. This $0 request would enable admin to leverage federal funds for renewable energy and energy storage upgrades at state-owned facilities. This lowers costs for state government. Finally, as you move through the conference committee process, I encourage you to consider including language from admin's data sharing policy bill. This provision would break down silos and remove barriers for agencies so they can share limited data to coordinate actions related to investigating potential fraud. Also, I want to strongly caution you against repealing the authority for agencies to use a portion of grant funds for administration. This statute allows for up to 5% to be used for legislatively named grants and up to 10% to be used for competitive grant administration. It is only triggered when other funding is not appropriated for agencies to provide grant oversight. Effective grant administration is essential to protecting public funds and ensuring the intent of a grant is met. Every grant requires hundreds of hours of work by agencies. Agencies need adequate resources to ensure that grant recipients and administrators are in compliance with the law and best practices. These requirements span the life cycle of a grant from conflicts of interest, risk assessments, and competitive rating criteria to fraud, grant monitoring, and performance evaluations. The Minnesota Council of Nonprofits and Minnesota Council of Foundations supports maintaining this authority and supported its passage in 2023. This is because they know that nonprofits receive better customer service when agencies have adequate resources. Now more than ever, we need to provide support to agencies to do this work, not take away their resources. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I look forward to working with you through the conference committee process and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions for the Commissioner? Commissioner, I just wanted to comment because on your comment, I do have an amendment that would repeal that subdivision 14. And I don't disagree with you at all, and we're going to distribute a letter from the Council on Foundations, the Council on Nonprofits, excuse me, about grants because I think that's very important. But I'm not arguing that we don't need money for administering grants. I think that it's appropriate for the commissioners and the chairs of the committee to figure that out when they're figuring out the budget. And I think the flat across the board thing, what's ended up happening in the last year and a half is every chair is, we don't see it as much here, though yesterday we had one bill that missed it. So we had, notwithstanding subdivision 14, we had that 10 times in the bill. And I think your point is well taken that people need money to administer grants. If we want grants to be administered well and oversight and everything else, there's funding needed. But I think the flat across the board thing is not a good way to do it. And it's also not fair when the legislature appropriates, in one case, I know a $10 million grant in housing area, and the recipient, the one recipient, if it finds out they get $9.5 million. I think to me that's your point is well taken that we have to provide funding for grant administration. I just think that that one in the law is not a good way to do it. So I'm sorry to disagree with you on that, but I agree with the point of the need for funding it. I just think we should do it where we have the robust discussion where the agencies make their case, here's how much money we need for this, and the chairs work with the agencies to do it. So anyway, I just wanted to be clear because I do have an amendment on that. But I thank you for your testimony and for your work. Is there, which we have also any, I asked for questions, no questions. We also have Secretary of State Simon here, and wonder if he wanted to make some brief remarks. Welcome to the committee, Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Steve Simon, Minnesota Secretary of State. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I want to talk about the finance side of the bill. We understand in our office, and I personally understand, some of the strains you're under. The fact that we're facing a challenging budget situation, and we and I deeply appreciate the decisions that have been made to get to Senate File 3045 here today. And I know your work is far from over. So I know you have a lot of people calling you and contacting you. One of the things I want to emphasize, though, is I think from a fiscal standpoint alone, we are doing our part in the Office of Secretary of State. Those of you who serve on the committees that we spend a lot of time in, state and local government and elections, might know and remember this, but maybe others of you might not, which is we are a small profit center for the state of Minnesota. We make more money for the general fund than we cost. So that number is now up to $29 million per biennium. Now, in the scheme of state general fund budget of tens of billions of dollars, that might not seem like a lot of money. But if you add everything we cost, every person, every paper clip, everything, we bring in $29 million more than we cost. And we don't get to keep a penny of it. We throw it over the fence, so to speak, and it becomes part of the general fund for you as legislators to allocate as you see fit. So we hope that we are doing our part, a small part, to help in this time of constraint and belt tightening. So I want to offer my sincere thanks to Chair Xiong and to you, Chair Marty, for wholly funding our operating adjustment request in 26 and 27 with one-time funds in the amendment in the next biennium. These funds will allow the office to continue to provide timely services to Minnesota businesses, election administrators, voters, and those who fear for their physical safety. And I just want to say something, and Senator Pratt, you were absolutely right to say that what we want to do is avoid anything that will adversely impact our communities, our local governments, and most importantly, Minnesota families. I think you're spot on there. I think that's everyone's goal. I just want to point out that the need for this operating adjustment, what's really driving it, is growing demand by Minnesotans for the services that our office provides. So, for example, business filings are up 25% in the last few years. We need folks to handle that. We don't want people waiting in line, metaphorically or otherwise, for a long, long time. Postage is up 23% in the last few years. Obviously, none of us in this room control that. That's a function of the federal government, and we have programs in our office that rely heavily on the U.S. mail system. Operational expenses and so forth. And if you're curious about where that growth is occurring, there's a letter in your packet that goes into greater detail. I don't want to take up more of your time than I need to. So in funding this operating adjustment to the extent you could, you've really helped sustain the office's work to serve Minnesotans. In particular, I want to point out the stability that you're providing to the address confidentiality program that we call Safe at Home. Some of you are very familiar with this. Over the years, it's enjoyed ironclad, bipartisan, consistent support. This is the address confidentiality program that provides safety and security for people who are in fear of their physical safety, victims of sexual assault, law enforcement personnel, sometimes as judges and prosecutors and others. And here, one of the services that we provide is getting them their mail through other channels. So here's where the postal increase comes in. When postal costs go up 23%, you can see where this is going. We don't want to pass along that deficit to other folks. Additionally, this operating adjustment sustains our elections division. which works so closely with our county and municipal partners who administer fair, safe, and free elections. And this work, as you know, and some of you have talked about, has increased in complexity and cost and scrutiny over the last decade. So you're really helping out there. As you may have seen, we announced just last week that Minnesota ranked in the last election #1 in youth voter turnout. That's 18 to 29-year-olds, and #2 in overall voter turnout. Achingly, we lost the #1 spot to Wisconsin, of all states. It's a border battle by 0.2%. We'll get them next time in 2026, but you're helping us, at least indirectly, to do that. That's up to Minnesota voters, but you're helping us there. So again, I want to thank Chair Xiong and Chair Marty for your creativity and your sense of purpose. I encourage members to support this bill as amended by the A38 amendment. Thanks for your time and attention.
Thank you, Secretary of State Simon. Questions for, if not, thank you very much for coming today. I think that's it for our commissioners and constitutional officers here today. We now have some amendments, and I guess maybe going in numerical order for no other reason, I'm going to say the A30 amendment. Is that in the packets? A30 amendment, which is in the packets, is the one that we discussed. Senator Howell commented on it yesterday, and Commissioner Gronvall commented on her hope that we would not do that. But I wonder if the A30. Yes, go ahead, Senator Drahan.
Thank you. So you're repealing, Senator Marty, on the A30, the admin fee that I think a lot of other bills have already cited. Can we get maybe nonpartisan explain what would happen if we repeal this section 14 or subdivision 14 of 16B.98?
Mr. Naumann.
Mr. Chair and Senator Draheim, as the commissioner testified, this is a provision of law that specifies that if, unless otherwise specified, grants, administrative costs may be retained from a grant appropriation equal to 5% or 10%, depending on whether the grant is competitive or not. Because bills did not know that this amendment would be offered, to your point, many of the grant appropriations that you have already seen in this committee have not withstood that provision because my assumption chairs wanted to specify a different amount. So if this were repealed, then that requirement would no longer be the case, and chairs could make decisions without notwithstanding this particular provision. Does that help, Mr. Chair and Senator Drahan?
Thank you.
The biggest change we would see if this is adopted and then if it becomes law would be that next year or in future years we won't have so many thousands of subdivision, notwithstanding subdivision 14, because again, as I said earlier, I think the commissioner's right that agencies and whoever is administering grants needs funds to do that, but it's more appropriate for our budget committees and commissioners to discuss those things and calculate it, because, I mean, some chairs may choose to say, we'll fund the agency a bit more and give them nothing. Some count on the, whatever they say. Some, I think, have had a standard of 5% or whatever. And, but I think it's a better process if both the administration and the legislature discuss these things rather than have a default. And so that's why I'm proposing this. I wonder if Senator Pappas, if you'd move that. Anyhow, Senator Drahan, go ahead.
Back to the 830. Thank you, Chair. And you know, my understanding then, the agencies, if we eliminate this, anything that's already been done, and I understand moving forward, would be able to pick any administration fee unless it was noted.
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry, I not heard it.
I'm sorry. I got a little bit of a cold. My understanding would be then any administrative fee could be set by the agency if we repeal this, if it isn't otherwise noted.
No, Senator Draheim, we have to set that. They get nothing unless we set one.
Okay,
and so the legislature, in other words, I'd argue it should be a legislative controlled thing that the administration and the legislature work out fair numbers.
And I don't disagree. I agree with you on that. And I don't think one size fits all. And I think different programs require more assistance and more money, and others don't require much. So I don't disagree with you. I just want to understand it. Thank you.
And Senator Draheim, also, we have given agencies and others more responsibility, more obligations in overseeing grants, which I think is fully appropriate, and we have to pay for that. But again, this is just, I think the biggest change we're going to see in our Senate finance bills in future years is fewer extra lines in them for each time there's a grant saying notwithstanding 16B 98 sub 1. It's a matter of legislative authority and having a better discussion between agencies and staff. Is there further discussion of this amendment? Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if I understand the amendment, it rolls us back to where we were prior to the 2023-2024 biennium. But I just want to make sure that I think either to tail on Senator Draheim's question, or he spurred a new one in my mind. If Senate Council could, or nonpartisan, either Mr. Naumann or Ms. Stengel, if there is no designation of what can be withheld, I just want to make clear that then the presumption is zero rather than the agency gets to determine what their withholding is.
Mr. Naumann.
Mr. Chair and Senator Pratt, that's how I would read the law if this were repealed. Thank you.
Is there further discussion of the A30 amendment? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. We have the next number I see, and people may have other ones in their packets. I don't care what order we go. Senator Pappas, the A32 amendment, which I believe was included in that paperclip edition of amendments earlier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first line, this has to do with the Capital Area Architectural Board, and the first line is on line 1.2 is a extension of funding for capital mall improvements. That is already included in the bill, but we wanted to give it a longer extension so they can complete the Tribal Plaza, complete the purchase of more trees and benches, and start the wayfaring sign project to help people find their way around the Capitol. Then 1.4 in 23 or 24, I can't remember now, we established this vitality fund for the CAP board to administer in the capital area because there was concerns about safety, about economic development, about, they call it vitality in general, but the legislature had to come back and decide how to spend that money after there was a community input process, which there was. And so that's been sitting in a reserve account, and so this is appropriating that money, which would give, it's $5 million, and I'm sorry, I think this is supposed to be $3 million. Not $5 million. Wait, I'm trying to understand this. Of that amount. Okay, got it. Ms. James, could you just come up? Because I think it's supposed to be, I'm looking at the A32. It's $5 million total that's going to Ramsey County for the Ramsey County Sheriff. No, it's supposed to be $5 million total. It's supposed to be $3 million is going to the Ramsey County Sheriff and $2 million is going to the St. Paul Foundation. Could you, do I have this wrong? Because there's only $5 million in the Vitality Fund. Sorry, I didn't read this over carefully. And of that amount, $2 million is going to the St. Paul Foundation for community grants. So I think it should be $3 million is going to Ramsey County for the sheriff. Oh, sorry.
Senator Pappas, I think that the amendment does what you're saying. It's $5 million is appropriated from the general fund for a grant to the sheriff, but of that $2 million, it says of the amount appropriated under paragraph A. So it's $3 million.
Oh, to the Commissioner of I don't know, is that right? It's okay? Okay.
Ms. James, any comments?
I'm just confused. All right, so 3 stays to the Ramsey County Sheriff, and he's going to focus on public safety, youth and family programming, street and neighborhood cleanup, and ambassadors, and has to consult with the CAP board. And then $2 million is going to the St. Paul Foundation. That would be for other activities that could go on in the area for community organizations, artists, and businesses focusing on enhancing vitality and culture within the capital area. So that's what it is. It's revenue neutral. I'm sorry about my own confusion.
Mr. Erickson or Ms. James, could you, the community vitality account, this unencumbered balance is $5 million, so we're just taking that money now and using it, giving, okay.
Mr. Chair, that's my understanding. The $5 million was appropriated in 2023 in an account, but couldn't be spent. So this is coming in and it's canceling that old appropriation and reappropriating it, as Senator Pappas just described.
And Mr. Chairman, I want to apologize for bringing this to the Finance Committee and not to state and local government, although I did make Senator Xiong aware of it, and I'll just blame it on the other body because they just took a long time to figure out what they thought they wanted to do.
Thank you. Is there further discussion of the A? Senator Pratt of the A32.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if I understand the A32, this increases the budget above target for this bill. Is that a fair statement?
Mr. Erickson.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt, could you repeat that question?
Sure. This appropriates new money from the general fund. I'm wondering how that affects the target.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Pratt. I don't have a hard copy of the amendment in front of me, but if I recall it correctly, there's a repealer at the bottom and a cancellation of another. There it is. So on sections 1.24 to 1, or lines 1.24 to 1.26, this cancels the full unencumbered balance that's in the current account. This is the one where the money had been appropriated in 2023, and the whole $5 million has been unspent and unencumbered. And then the repealer there is repealing the existence of that account. That creates a $5 million savings, which is then what the bill is appropriating.
It's revenue neutral.
Can you show me where on the spreadsheet that
So
$5
it's
million
not currently on the spreadsheet just because this is an amendment, but if it were to go onto the spreadsheet, the one that we were just reviewing, if you went.
Is that carryover that we're canceling shown on the spreadsheet?
So it's not on the spreadsheet because this reflects the first engrossment rather than the amendment. But if it were, we would show a cancellation savings of $5 million and a reappropriation under admin.
In the same fiscal year?
In the same fiscal year.
Thank you.
And Senator Pappas, you said they are going to be, some of this money is going for the signs, to help people around the capital area?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, that's been an issue that's been requested for visitors who come to the Capitol and they don't know where to go, they don't know where to park, they don't know where everything is. And so this would begin the process of designing signs. It takes a while. So some of the money would be used for that. But most of it would go, wait a minute, that's the other fund. Just so you know, there's 2 funds here. There's $2.1 million left in the Capital Mall Fund. Most of that would go to more trees and benches and the plaza. We want to finish that plaza so it's not half done.
And that's simply the first couple lines where it was.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Chairman, just one more thing is the problem was somehow, again, I'll blame the other body, the expiration date was really early, and so they weren't able to get the trees and get them installed and get the work done by that early expiration date. So we're extending that date now.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on Senator Pappas' A32 amendment? Senator Draheim and then Senator Pratt.
Thank you. You know, this sounds nice, but I have a hard time supporting it when I go back in my district, and I think I had 7 meetings last week across my 7 counties, and this isn't what I heard about. You know, I heard concern about us cutting our long-term care facility funding, our schools having to lay off teachers and paras, cut programming. That's what I heard, not about this. So this sounds nice. It'd be a great improvement. I just think the timing is wrong. So I will have to respectfully oppose the 832.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Pappas.
Mr. Chairman, I mean, we are responsible for the safety of the visitors and the employees here at the Capitol, and there have been concerns expressed about that, especially around the light rail stations. So, and just the general, you know, we don't want to live in the middle of, I hate to say it, it's my district, but in the middle of a slum. You know, we really should take some responsibility for our surrounding environment as well. So this would really help with that. And it's been really important to the surrounding community that the visitors who come to the Capitol feel like it's a welcoming place, that they don't have to sit in the hot sun, which can be a danger as the summers get very hot, and have kind of feel welcomed in the Capitol area.
Senator Pratt, then Senator Friends.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to go back to the cancellation. I guess I'm still a little confused. Mr. Erickson, if we didn't cancel the $5 million on lines 1.25 and 1.26, what would happen to those funds? Where would they be?
Mr. Chair and Senator Pratt, they would stay in that account, just unappropriated and unspent.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you. And what's the difference in the use of those funds in the account that they sit in today versus where they would be under the amendment?
So, Mr. Chair and Senator Pratt, this account I think was set up in a different bill, so I don't remember the exact conversation that was going on around it, but my understanding of that account is that the money was put there as a placeholder and that certain stakeholders were supposed to come up with a plan for how that was spent, but the money in the account couldn't be spent until that plan was essentially submitted to the legislature and appropriated for those purposes specifically. So this is taking a different approach to it. Instead of sort of releasing those funds out of the account, it's saying there's really no purpose for this account at this point. Let's just make the appropriation directly. So it's taking the money that was for this purpose and now sort of recognizing that there's this plan in place. And Senator Pappas seems closer to that process and maybe knows more about what that plan is. But that's my understanding of the mechanics surrounding this.
Senator Pratt, are you finished?
I'm reading, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Go on. You can move along if I have another question.
Senator Friends.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And first of all, Senator Xiong, thank you for just incredible work here. It's unbelievable that you've been the chair for the amount of time you have and produced this bill with this complexity. But having heard Senator Draham's comments, I have to toss a couple out myself, members. We've had agencies come before us and say thank you for the operating adjustment, and I think that's appropriate. They're talking about growing complexity and growing demand for their services. I think what's missing here today is the discussion of the cities and counties. They have the same growing complexity. They have the same increasing demands. We're talking about things like public safety, health and human services. And I go back to my district, which is about this far from Senator Draham's district, and that's all I hear about. And I'll be a yes vote on the amendment, but we better ask ourselves, if we're asking the state to make the same type of sacrifices that we're asking the counties and the cities to make, in my opinion, we aren't. And we better ask ourselves what local taxpayers think when we start hearing about cuts to public safety at the local level. And in particular, in Blue Earth and Nicollet County, I'm hearing quite a bit about health and human services and the possible impact of the proposed budget on those counties and the services that are provided to those Minnesotans, which are often the most vulnerable. So, Senator Pappas, you can count on my yes vote on this amendment, but members of the Finance Committee, I would just say, are we sure we're asking for shared sacrifice here? We're asking for sacrifices from working men and women in Minnesota, and they are interested in the bottom line. They're trying to put food on the table, a roof over their head, and clothes on their backs, whether it's their electric bills or whether it's their county taxes. And wherever you live, North Mankato or North Minneapolis, I think our budget better reflect that, or we're going to have some other questions to answer next time we go back to our districts, and it won't be about trees and benches. It'll be about I cannot afford my life. So thank you. I'll be a yes vote on the bill too, Senator Xiong. I probably should have tossed that out there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. On the Senator Dames, on the A30.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And as I sit here and listen to this, I would be a no vote. And one of the reasons I would be a no vote is when I look around at what's happening and what we're proposing in the budget and what we're proposing to do to nursing homes, homes for the disabled, the schools. You know, when I go to the nursing home and talk to some of the elderly people, they're pretty concerned about if that nursing home is going to be able to continue and if they're going to be able to afford the cost to be there. They really don't care about the fact that if we've got a nice tree in the mall out here, or a nice bench. They're more concerned about having a bed to sleep in. And I think that we need to be looking at our budget as from a standpoint of taking care of those people first. Then we get through that, then let's talk about beautifying the grounds out here. And I understand where you're coming, Senator Pappas, and I certainly don't fault you for this at all. But it's, I just feel in our district, rural districts, we need to make sure we're taking care of the people first and making sure that they have an opportunity to continue to live with a shelter over their head as elderly in nursing homes, and that's my higher priority.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on the A32 amendment of Senator Pappas? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Motion prevails. Next amendment, I will ask if Senator Pappas can move the A36 amendment for me, which
I'll move the A36.
Thank you. A36 is one, I apologize for the late nature of this. I haven't talked face-to-face other than a few sentences with Senator Xiong about this, but I wanted to make the case that, and we're distributing a letter from Council on Nonprofits that they sent to the chairs of Ways and Means and Finance, asking that we be cautious in how we deal with grants, because I think there's a push, which I support, for when possible making things competitive grants, but they point out is, as I think a lot of us understand, that there are a variety of types of grants and types of reasons for this. And so this would just be a small task force to report back to the legislature by January, so it's a very short-term one. And the point of this would be to give us guidelines and advice for determining how we appropriate money, whether it's to for-profits or nonprofits, for doing work that the state desires to have done for the public good. Whether it's best to appropriate, at the bottom of the page one, you can see develop recommendations, advice for best practices for appropriating money for grants, and determining when to appropriate money through competitive ones, when for grant to named organizations, when services could best be procured by a contracting process. And in making those recommendations at the top of the second page, recognizing the difference between traditional or perennial made grantees and whether they deserve a different process for selection than grantees that have not received such stuff, with consideration of the importance of correcting historical inequities and the role that perennial named grantees may have to provide valued services, and how the dependees may rely on state grant funding. Museums is an example of this, and so on, that the state has traditionally year after year made grants to them and so on, and others. But in other words, how do we make good decisions on this? And so I'm asking for a small appropriation which does fit into this. I believe Mr. Erickson, I don't remember, I think this was 70,000 that it would be requiring. But I told this does fit in with the cancellation of those grants and the new appropriation thing. But I guess I'm asking the committee to consider this, just because I think it would be very helpful to us in trying to figure out when we should appropriate money that's not for work not being done by the state, when it should be through state procurement as vendors, or when it should be through state competitive grants, or when it should be through named grants, and how we make wise decisions on this. And that's what I'm asking the committee to take a look at. I certainly welcome advice if this in terms of who serves on this and what the direction of it is, but with that, I'm happy to take questions on it. And Senator Xiong, would you want to comment on it briefly, or?
Yeah, thank you, Senator Marty, for plugging me into the conversations I do see the letter from the Minnesota Council of Nonprofits and do share a lot of what they had stated here. But I think this is a direction that would be beneficial to the best interests of the state and in our funding. And I look forward to working with you on this.
I appreciate your willingness to help on that. And I know Senator Champion and I had talked about how we make sure that the appointees of this are looking at all these concerns appropriately and have diverse backgrounds in that. So intend to continue working on it. Senator Draheim on the amendment.
Thank you. I support the concept here of a task force looking, even though I hate task forces. But as long as it's short term, and I do think we have to reevaluate how we handle a lot of the grants as we expand our sheer volume of grants and the number of issues we've had across multiple agencies with some of our grants. So I will definitely support this, but I do think we might need to add some additional language on the floor. So.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on 836? Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm going to echo what Senator Draheim said. I think this is probably a good exercise to go through, and I appreciate that the task force expires on January 31st of next year. But we also, there is a bill out there, Senate File 2999, authored by myself and Senator Rest, that goes into the OLA recommendation that all of our employees have, that in the grant-making process, have training on how to do that, specifically to try to address the issue of rampant fraud that we've seen in our agencies. And it's all well and good to talk about it, but I guess I'm a little disappointed that we can't even take an OLA recommendation on that training piece to have an immediate impact while we have this going on, and that might be one of the changes we want to make on the floor, because I haven't had a chance to look at that or have any conversations with Senator Xiong or anyone else about how, or yourself, about how we might be able to make that work at the same time. I think, this has been a bipartisan issue to address fraud, and this was one of the, when we had the financial controls meeting, this was one of the financial controls that the OLA rightfully assigned to the legislature to adopt, and I think we need to take that sort of action. So while it'll be a yes vote on the amendment today, I think it still needs a lot more work.
Further, Senator Champion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll be brief because I know the time is of the essence. I'll just say that I thank you for being considerate and thoughtful about this issue, and that consideration and thoughtfulness is reflected in the 836. I also can appreciate the Minnesota Council of Nonprofits. I'm appreciative of the letter that they've sent and how they have articulated with clarity the issue. And I think it's important to have a clarion voice like the Minnesota Council of Nonprofits during a time when there's so much negativity that is being tossed at nonprofits as if they're just ripe for fraud and ripe with corruption, and I think they make a balance, or they take a balanced approach to say that direct appropriations work as well as competitive grants, and there has to be a balance and a thoughtfulness. And so I do appreciate you again, Mr. Chair, for passing out the letter, and thank you to the President and CEO as well as the Public Policy Director from the Minnesota Council of Nonprofits, because I do think that we are all in this together, and that we should not be demonizing and weaponizing a discussion around nonprofits in order to get to a place or space that we want, sometimes, politically or unfortunately. But we're in it together, and I do want to thank those who are on jobs, because we have been very thoughtful around 990s, other documentation, really thinking through the agency guardrails, and so I just want to appreciate those who are trying to do the right thing. So even though I think this needs a little work, and I did talk to Senator Marty about that, and so I'm happy that he's open to further clarifying or really making sure that we get the information that we're all looking for. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Further discussion on 836? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. Other amendments?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Pappas.
Thank you. I have the 837 amendment, which I think needs to be passed out.
Okay. While that's being passed out, I'm going to ask Department of Administration not to comment here or anything, but I know some of the, Senator Pratt was talking about making sure we have training and grant making for everyone. And I heard from the Department of Administration some of the things that are being done. I guess I'd appreciate if you could send a letter to members of the committee to update us on what status of things are to educate and move forward on grant administration things. So if you could do that for the committee, get it to our office, we'll share it with everyone on the committee. So, the 837 amendments has now been distributed. Senator, and the letter is along with it, Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm doing this on behalf of Senator Fate, but I think it's a good idea about parking in the Capitol area, and the CAP board has already been in the process of changing the rules so that there aren't specific minimum vehicle parking spaces required. And that's all it is.
Senator Pappas, you've discussed with the CAP board folks?
Yes, I have. They're supportive. I've discussed it with Senator Xiong.
Further discussion, Senator Xiong? Go ahead if you have any comments.
I've had discussions with both Senator Fate and Senator Pappas on this, and did receive communication with St. Paul, and with giving some control back to St. Paul on how they want their city to look like.
Thank you. Senator Draheim on the amendment.
Thank you. My first question, Chair, would be on ADA, and does this have any impact on mobility or ADA parking? Thank you.
Senator Pappas?
Not to my knowledge. I don't think it would have an impact.
Senator Xiong nodded as well, but yeah, I think we can't override that anyway. I mean, ADA rules would govern on any parking restrictions or not. Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my concern is that there's not enough parking around the Capitol as it is. And if, we are trying to invite people to be a part of the process, if we want Minnesotans to come visit their capital, I'm not quite sure why we would not allow the board to implement minimum parking requirements. And then I hadn't even considered the ADA perspective, because the board could not implement minimum ADA parking requirements either. What I see is that this will make it harder for Minnesotans to participate in their government, not easier. And I think as we are doing these planning, we need to make sure that we are setting aside the space to adequately allow our residents to visit the Capitol, to visit their senators and representatives. I am just concerned that we will, as I said, make it harder, not easier, to participate in the process.
Further discussion on the 837
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Pappas.
Mr. Chairman, this wouldn't prevent different agencies from deciding what they need in terms of parking, or it just would mean there's no kind of strict requirement. And now with a lot of people working remote, we probably have excess parking space already available in the Capitol. And I think it goes back to my other thing about wayfaring signs, is that would help visitors figure out where is the best way to go for parking, whether it's the Cass Gilbert Park up on the hill, or if there's available street parking, or any other space that might be available in a parking ramp. I think there's ample space available. I think people just don't know where to go. And so I don't think we need the restrictions. And the CAP board is on board with this.
Thank you. Further discussion, Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Pappas. Just a concern. So if you're saying there are excessive parking requirements, but we're going to let the government not abide by them, but the private industry and the developers will still have to. So I think it's a kind of a double-edged sword. You should not allow private investor, if someone's building an apartment complex and we're not waiving their requirements, but we're waiving the public's requirements, explain the difference. Maybe I'm not getting it.
Mr. Chairman, if you're talking about St. Paul, I think they waived all their parking requirements already. They just didn't have the authority to do it in the capital area.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion on 837. If not, all those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed? No. Motion prevails. Further amendments. Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to maybe start with a couple of questions, specifically as we look at I think it's the change sheet on lines 80 on down, specifically dealing with the ethnic councils, and I'm trying to find it on the main spreadsheet. Mr. Chair, we have, and Senator Xiong, we have vast discrepancies between all of the various ethnic councils and the amount that's being allocated to each. We're looking at a $259,000 increase for the African Heritage Council, $308,000 for the Latino Council, $484,000 for the LGBTQ Council, and $28,000 for the Asian Pacific. Can you tell me why we're seeing these huge discrepancies?
Senator Xiong.
Thank you, member, and thank you, Senator Pratt. I think for one piece of it is that these councils, they have a variety of needs and activities and development. Like for the LGBTQ plus council, it's a brand new council. We're trying to ramp up, so there's funding increases for totally new staff, for new offices. And that's partially explains for some of the different changes that are being requested from each of the different councils.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I believe the Council on Asian Pacific Minnesotans also has a number of those initiatives that they would like to pursue. But when I look at the total amount that we are allocating, the African Heritage Council will get about 1.9 million. The Latino Council will get about 1.7 million. The LGBTQ will get about 1.5 million. The Council on Asian Pacific Minnesotans will get about 1.3 million, significantly lower than the rest. I'm trying to figure out, and this was a council that received a smaller increase 2 years ago. I'm trying to figure out why we're seeing such a discrepancy when we have, as we've talked about, the 50th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War. We have celebrating the cultures of Southeast Asians and communities in Minnesota. I would say that the API Council, from my work with it, is one of the more diverse councils in the government. From Pacific Islanders all the way to, they were involved with relocation of some of the Afghani refugees back in 2021. So why aren't we seeing more equitable funding among the councils?
These funds are responsive to the needs of the councils and the people they serve. There are constituencies that we are trying to serve with all the different funding sources. I know you and we have had discussions on the Asian Pacific Council, and I myself have had discussions very recently with the API, with the CAPM Council. And so, you know, I think there are further discussions that needs to be had, and I look forward to getting to those discussions and maybe seeing where we can make adjustments.
Thank you. Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to offer the A31 amendment.
Senator Pratt offers the A31 amendment. Senator Pratt, go ahead. I think it's been distributed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I continue to be disturbed with the inequities and how we're treating various communities. And so what the A31 amendment does is it reduces the amount that we spend on each council down to what's being proposed for the Council on Asian Pacific Islander Minnesota's, and brings that savings back down to the bottom line. So, Mr. Chair, this is the second biennium when we've treated one council differently than all the rest, and I think we need to get back to parity. So that's the amendment. It's a very simple amendment. It's a very small cut, and it makes sure that, as I mentioned before, all of our agencies are feeling some of the pain and inconvenience that we're asking Minnesota families to deal with in these tight budget times.
Senator Xiong on the amendment.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Senator Pratt, for that. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, the different councils, they are each at different stages, serving different constituencies with different population sizes, programming, and this is, I don't think it's a one size fits all would be the best approach. Unfortunate for, you mentioned the previous biennium. I wasn't the chair and I wasn't privy to those discussions, but I look forward to working with all the councils moving forward, and I would encourage a no vote on this amendment.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Xiong, can you explain, so I think you did a pretty good job of talking about the LGBTQ, even though their funding that does exceed the Asian Pacific Council. Can you tell me specifically what programs are being done for $260,000 in the African Heritage or the $308,000 in the Latino councils?
Senator Xiong.
Thank you, Chair Marty, Senator Pratt. So I don't have the details here in front of me. I can go over that with you in further detail, but what I can tell you, it's additional staff. So, for example, the Latino Affairs Council, they had made a request for additional staff dealing with some of the outreach work that's needed and some of the federal changes that are happening on the federal level.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I continue to be disturbed. I mean, if we're adding staff, I know there are lots of requests to add staff. We added 1,000 new positions over the last 2 years. I don't know that, we need many more new state level positions. We already increased the budget 40% in 23 and 24. And again, we all need to go on, we all need to run a little bit more efficiently. I know that, because I sit on the council as a legislative liaison, I know that CAPM had similar requests for additional staff and programs that were approved for the other councils and not for this one. And so if it's appropriate to have this council run more lean and more efficiently, then it's appropriate for all the councils to run more lean and more efficiently. So with that, Mr. Chair, I encourage a yes vote. I think we need to send the signal to all of the Minnesotans that are served by these councils that they are equally respected, and that we are not going to play favorites, and we are not going to put partisan or personal politics in the way of doing good work.
Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually agree with Senator Pratt that I think that all councils need to be treated equally. I'm not going to support the amendment because I don't want to take money away from other councils, but I do think that the Asian Council should be brought up at least to the level of the Latino Council, in all fairness. And I would encourage Senator Xiong, as this bill moves forward, to seriously consider that.
Thank you. Further discussion on the Senator Draheim.
Thank you. I will support this amendment, but I do think it's ironic that we're doing increases here, and of my 7 counties, 5 have already indicated that they're going to have to raise property taxes 10 to 15%. 10 to 15%. And in the rural areas, we have a lot of aging population, and that means a lot of people on fixed income. And it's all these groups are important to their populations. I get it, but at some point we have to get back to the basics, and the shifts that the current administration is doing, and the majority to our counties. To me, should be a higher priority than increasing the funding for these groups, as important they are to their segment of the population. I agree with that, but our counties who do a lot of our work for people with disabilities, they do most of the work for all of our entitlement programs, and we're cutting funding for them. So I know I'm a broken record on that, but I will support the amendment, but I do think our priorities are off a little bit.
Thank you. Further discussion on the Pratt amendment. Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator Draheim, the impact of the amendment would be to cut costs by about $1 million.
Further discussion. Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Xiong. Thanks, Senator Pratt. I'm a no on the amendment, and here goes my logic. We have to empower the chief authors and the chairs to make certain tough decisions, and these ones are tough. Talking with Senator Xiong, I know that he's worked on this and considered it. What I heard is Senator Xiong recommend a no vote. I'll be a no vote on that basis, and as Finance Committee members, we can debate how much deference we give to the chief authors and the chairs of our committees. I think in this case, we should give a little more rather than a little less. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Further discussion on the A31 amendment? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Motion does not prevail. Further discussion on the bill? If not, Senator Xiong, you want to make some closing comments? Brief ones. Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before we go to closing comments by Senator Xiong, I was wondering if Mr. Nauman could give us an update on where we are session to date vis-a-vis the bottom line.
Mr. Nauman, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I'm assuming that you would like to have the state government and the elections targets reflected in this discussion.
Yes.
So, Mr. Chair, and for members, a reminder that the budgetary balance walking in to the session from the February forecast was a $1.6 billion positive balance in 26 and 27 and a $2.379 billion negative balance in 28 and 29. If you include these bills, which for the most part is additional spending, the budgetary balance is 1.509 in 26, 27, and a negative 2.572 in 28, 29.
And in 28, 29, we started at 2.9.
In 28, 29, we began with 2.379.
3.7.
So it is now negative 2.372.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are adding to the deficit. No way around it. We're adding to the structural deficit that we face. And we have not after increasing the state budget by 40% 2 years ago, despite the targets, we continue to move backwards in where we are. And tracking to the bottom line, we've had 2 adjustments upward in the amount of spending that we're going to do since the targets were first released in April. So this is, we have not asked any of our state agencies to feel the pain that we're asking Minnesota families to feel. You know, we talked about 15% increases in property taxes. I can tell you that the median, based on what I'm hearing from my county, the median property tax increase is going to be about $1,200 to $1,300 on a home. Now, I know a lot of people like to look at Prior Lake and say, well, it's all the lake homes. No, it's not. It's the homes in Shakopee. It's the starter homes. It's the across the board. Families that can't afford an additional $1,300 in property taxes. And while I appreciate the budget targets, instead of shifting these costs down, we should be looking at how to make life more affordable for Minnesota families. Senator French, you talked about it, and I agree with you. But that's, we can agree on the what. We need to cut the state budget. But we shouldn't be doing it on the how by putting that burden on Minnesota families. And I've yet to see in any of these bills where we've increased spending, where we're asking the state to make tough decisions on the 1,000 new positions that we created just one biennium ago. Where we are looking at hiring freezes, where we are at looking at operating efficiencies. None of it. So, Mr. Chair, I'll be a no vote on the bill because I think we need to be more serious and more direct in helping Minnesota families who are quite honestly, many of them now living paycheck to paycheck based on the increased cost of food and insurance and clothing and everything else. Now, I know we're going to get some, pushback on the federal piece, and, I don't want to go there. All I want to talk about is the fact that everything that we've talked, the entire budget forecast was based prior to this administration coming in. We had a significant deficit before this administration came in. We had the governor's proposal to shift all of these costs back on the counties before the new administration came in. And it's just gaslighting when we start talking about the feds, because we're not acknowledging the decisions that were made by the DFL trifecta just one biennium ago in this budget that led us to be in the position we are today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Pratt. I will point out that with the budget targets the Senate has, when we have adopted all of the budget bills, we will have addressed both the current biennium and the out biennium projected shortfall. And unlike the House, we have addressed that and will when we get through all the bills, picking out some of the bills, saying some go up and some go down. makes that point. But anyhow, Senator Xiong, you have closing comments on your bill.
Thank you, Chair and members. You know, we worked with the targets that we were given. They're tough conversations. I know that some members on the committee might not feel that, but even with some of the operating adjustments that we had provided here, some of the operating increases, many different agencies will be having to cut FTEs and putting people out of a job. But we try to fund where we can. We try to address some of the fraud and waste and abuse, putting money into consumer protection, consumer rights protection funding, and you know, I hope that I can get your support. We are trying to help run government here. That's what I hope that this bill can do, and keep Minnesota functioning going forward in the next 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Xiong. Complex bill with the state, all the state agencies and everything. Senator Friends moves to amend Senate File 3045, that's the state and local government bill, as amended by adding the contents of the elections budget bill, Senate File 3096. So this would take the bill we took up earlier, as of that bill as amended. We would take up Senate File 3096 as amended and insert the contents into this bill. Senator Friends makes that motion. Is there any discussion? If not, roll call has been requested. No? Well. Okay. Okay. There is one now, apparently. Anyway, on that motion, further discussion? If not, staff will take the roll.
Senator Marty?
Aye.
Senator Friends?
Yes.
Senator Pratt?
No.
Senator Champion?
Yes.
Senator Dames?
No.
Senator Draheim?
No.
Senator Howe? Senator Jasinski?
No.
Senator Mohammed?
Yes.
Senator Murphy? Senator Pappas?
Yes.
Senator Wickland? Senator Howe? Senator Wickland?
On that motion, there are 6 ayes and 4 nays, so the motion does prevail. Now, Senator Friends moves that Senate File 3045, that's the state and local government omnibus bill, as amended, be recommended to pass, and instruct the staff to make technical and conforming changes. Is there a discussion on that motion? If not, nobody asked for a roll call. If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Motion prevails. We are, with that, thank you, Senator Xiong. With that, we are finished with today's business. We will be convening tomorrow at 8:30 for jobs and environment bills. With that, this committee is adjourned.